This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back. We're talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 1.
Steve represented the best in all of us. Courageous, righteous, hopeful. And he mastered posing stoically. The world has been forever changed. A few months ago, billions of people reappeared after 5 years away, sending the world into turmoil. We need new heroes. One suited for the times we're in. Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning. And this thing, I don't know if there's ever been a greater symbol, but it's more about the man who propped it up. And he's gone. So today we honor Steve's legacy, but also we look to the future. Thank you, Captain America. But this belongs to you.
I hear a lot of people saying the blues, but I'm gonna tell you what the blues is. When you ain't got no money, you got the blues.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the brand new series on Disney+. We're here talking about episode 1. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I am one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out this trio while we talk about a duo, I am Chris.
That was pretty good, Chris. I like that.
Thank you. That was on the spot.
I love it. Yeah, back talking about Marvel.
I know.
Once again, yeah.
After only, 1 week?
Yeah.
Hooray!
We did do our wrap-up podcast on WandaVision last week after the show finished 2 weeks ago. So yeah, not too long since we talked about Marvel. We have also talked about DC, though. We have talked about Pennyworth for the last couple of weeks too.
That is true. But the problem is, I've still got the WandaVision theme tune in my head, so I keep going, Falcon, Winter Soldier, Falcon, Winter Soldier. When will the bromance happen? That is the question.
Yeah,
or will it just be in my own hex reality?
I kind of have, it was Bucky all along going on in my head.
Well, based on this episode, it was.
It really was. Killing everyone in his way.
Absolutely. As you can probably tell, this is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion about this episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. If you haven't joined us before, we go into full detailed spoilers about the episode, so make sure you watch it before you come back and join us for our in-depth discussion about Falcon and Winter Soldier. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're coming to TV Podcast Industries for the first time, we have been podcasting for about 6 years now. A lot of Marvel, a lot of DC, lots of comic book TV, so hopefully you'll enjoy our coverage of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, though, make sure you pop on over to the website at tvpodcastindustries.com, subscribe over there, or just look for us under TV Podcast Industries.
Yeah, we're also over on Facebook. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. We will be putting a spoiler post up on our Facebook group where we can discuss each episode on a weekly basis. So you can posit your theories, comments, thoughts on anything to do with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we will read those back in our feedback section.
Yep, very lucky this week that we're getting to podcast about Falcon and the Winter Soldier before it's been released to the world, but that does mean we don't have any feedback for this episode, so get your thoughts in on episode 1 and episode 2. We normally record on Saturdays, the day after the episode airs on Disney+, and we'll talk about all of your feedback as the season goes on.
Yes, thank you so much for supporting us, for those who have followed us for the years that we have been jamming out the airwaves, or jamming the airwaves with our own dulcet tones. But you can also support us over on the patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. For just $1 can help keep the lights on, the hamsters in the wheel, and our podcast producer, Derek Extraordinaire, in caffeine, because he does do a very fast turnaround, because typically we record on a Saturday morning and you will get the show on a Saturday evening. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's that fast.
We try hard. I'm definitely changing my name to Derek Extraordinaire.
Yeah, it's kind of like a porn name, but it could be like the Winter Soldier. It's your code name.
It's kind of like the character of Unique in this show, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Absurd.
It's Derek Extraordinaire with an X for X-Men. Well, without further ado, let's get into our discussion about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. No point in holding awfully longer. We've been looking forward to this one for a very long time. The episode was written by Malcolm Spellman, the showrunner or executive producer for the show. He was a producer and writer on the TV show Empire, but this is his first foray into the Marvel shows.
Excellent stuff. A newbie.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, but very talented, very experienced. So,
absolutely.
You can certainly tell that from the episode. The episode was directed by Kari Skogland. She has been directing TV since 1994, and has directed some of my favorite shows now, some of our favorite shows, including Handmaid's Tale and The Walking Dead. We've spoken about her twice before on our podcast. She did direct Penny Dreadful Season 2, Episode 8, Memento Mori, a pretty fantastic episode of Penny Dreadful.
Pretty awesome.
Oh, I remember that.
And we also talked about her on a very connected series to this one, In a Way. She did direct Season 1, Episode 4, Resupply of Punisher, Season 1. So, there is a bit of a connection because Punisher did use a lot of bullets in that first season.
Yes.
And there's definitely some big action sequences in this show. So, moving over from the Netflix Marvel universe, let's say, for this director, Kari Skogland, over into Marvel Disney, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, great stuff. And nice to have a former Marvel Netflix director on board, in Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Sure. As the world tries to come to terms and deal with the aftermath of the blip and the return of billions after 5 years, so too do Sam Wilson and James Buchanan Barnes. Sam struggles with the ownership of Captain America's shield, passed to him by Steve Rogers. It simply feels like it belongs to someone else, as he returns it to the Smithsonian Museum to put on display. While Bucky, in therapy as a condition of his pardon, struggles to lead a normal life as he is haunted by his actions as the Winter Soldier. As the Falcon, Sam continues working missions for the Air Force to combat newly emerging terrorist threats with Intel Officer Torres, while back in America he is engaged trying to save the family shrimp fishing business and help his sister Sarah. In New York, Bucky is trying to find some daily rhythm to his life, working through his list to make up for his past mistakes as the infamous Hydra agent Winter Soldier, as he befriends an old man named Yori, grieving for his dead son, and settles a score with Senator Atwood. Meanwhile, in Switzerland, First Lieutenant Torres infiltrates an operation by an emerging terrorist organization called the Flag Smashers, just as the US government reveals a new Captain America to bring hope to the world.
Very good, John.
Oh, why, thank you.
Well, my first question is, guys, who's Mephisto in this show?
I reckon it is Torres.
Well, I just thought we'd start off with a little bit of a joke. A very different show here in Falcon the Winter Soldier than we got in WandaVision. Straight off the bat, this is really taking its cue from the Winter Soldier and Civil War, the previous two movies that had James Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson kind of together in those movies, or at least one of them fighting apart and one of them kind of fighting together. So it's certainly taking its cue from that side of the MCU, kind of what we expected, but that's a good thing, right?
Definitely, yeah.
It kind of is and kind of isn't what I expected.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll definitely
but we'll get into that,
yeah.
Yes.
Once again, if you haven't joined us for TV Podcast Industries, the way that we cover our shows usually is with our top 5 points. This time, because we're talking about Falcon the Winter Soldier, it is our top 5 bullet points. So, bullet point number 1. Yeah, I don't need to explain why we chose that, do I? Point number 1, our bullet point number 1, Falcon on a mission. Let's kick off with where is Sam Wilson post Endgame and post return from the snap. Let's talk about his initial mission. For me, just the reason why I wanted to kind of call this out up front is because this really is blurring the lines between the MCU and TV for me. Like, I know WandaVision had some really cool special effects going on with the magic effects and that kind of stuff, but this looks exactly like a scene you would see in one of the Captain America movies or the Avenger movies, the kind of battling scenes in the sky that are shown in this. I was like, I want to run out to the IMAX and go and watch these scenes there. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. This opening fight sequence with Sam trying to rescue Captain Vincent.
It was,
100%.
yeah, absolutely. It was incredible. I kind of felt like I was Lieutenant Torres down on the ground with binoculars, sort of whooping. I loved the whole sequence, missiles, helicopters, explosions, cool stuff as well with, Falcon's wings. I really liked him using them as almost his own shield, and to stop the bullets. But also, we've seen him in the past where he's used them to stab people, the pointy ends.
That's right. Yeah.
I think he can pick his nose with the ends as well.
I don't really see that in the show,
they're really multifunctional, but I loved how they did that, and just having Red Wing as well coming out doing some of the heavy lifting for Sam Wilson.
Yeah.
So I really liked that whole interplay, and of course with the wingsuits, I keep calling them flying squirrels. That was just a really awesome sequence, and I don't know whether it was meant to, but the hostage, Captain Vasson, I loved how, I guess just doing that as a stuntman, he had to keep his head down to minimize the drag or the wind resistance, but it looked perfect. It was like, I'm just holding on. Don't drop me. And some of that aerial stuff as well, where the flying squirrel suit man, where they're going down face first, with their arms and legs stretched out with that. But I like how one of them turns round to fire the gun at Sam, because I kind of didn't think you were able to do that, but obviously you can. So that was like, it was almost Bond-esque.
I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Really cool.
It really felt like a Bond opening, didn't it? Yeah.
For me, this mirrored Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not just in the enemy.
Yeah.
We do get to see Bartok the Leaper.
Yes, Bartok
the French mercenary, which is fun to see. It is.
He's not French, Chris. He's Algerian. I could draw you a map.
Oh, yes. There you go. Sorry. Myself and my globe apologize. Or my atlas, I should say.
It can be a globe as well.
Yeah. Either. But I actually have both.
Do you even live on this planet, Chris?
No. I live on the moon.
Don't tell me you're a flat earther, Chris.
No, I live on the moon. It's secretly a base where I watch over everything.
Oh, you're a watcher.
But yes, we have Bartok the Leaper, and this for me felt like the positioning of Sam as Captain America. It's the opening of it's set to mirror the opening of Winter Soldier, in that this is a mission to rescue people. He is there. You see him take on like mercenaries. If we do forget, like outside of his wings, Sam is not enhanced.
No.
He can fly, he has Red Wing, but that's about it. So we do see him take a few hits, he takes the punishment, but at the same time he gives as hard as he gets.
Yeah. He's certainly got some massive fighting skills. Like he's able to use those wings. As John said, seeing the way that they incorporate the wings into his fighting style, the one big thing that jumped out from watching Captain America Winter Soldier when we did that podcast about it for our Patreons, the one big thing that jumped out about that was they really showed for the first time Captain America using his shield in a really dynamic way and incorporating it into his fighting style. And I think they've done the same here with Sam. We've seen him fight before, and we've seen him use his wings before. We've seen him use Red Wing before. But in this opening scene, some of the really stylish touches where he uses the engine on his wings to fly somebody against a pallet, and using that dynamic style that he has along with the additional abilities that these wings give him, I thought was really cool. Really good incorporation of that style.
And he's pretty handy with his old fists as well. I actually thought his fighting style was better when in the cargo hold of the plane. It felt like, that had developed from the movies, where I guess you always just really saw him, with his wings out. It was mainly focused on that. So I liked seeing his sort of fighting style a bit more. I think the other thing as well with the special effects, I loved the close-ups that they did of him you know, because that's all special effects in the air with the wings, but like the way they're able to show him turning abruptly through that canyon, and the sort of expression on his face coupled with almost like he has got that G-force acting against him, and the bend of the head. I thought that was really authentic. It felt really, really good.
Absolutely. Just because you're so up close, it feels like what they used to do with Tony Stark, with Robert Downey Jr. in the suit, that the camera being so up close to him, you really get the impression that he's the one actually doing everything that's there. And by using the same kind of technique, you get the impression this is Sam Wilson, that you're right on board with him in these scenes. But they're just so dynamic. I love that he's jumping in and out of helicopters. They're moving the prisoner through multiple helicopters. Like, that's such a cool way of using the scene, and the constant countdown clock of them getting towards the border, so that this mission has to be complete within this certain, 3 minutes, effectively. It's about an 8-minute scene. The whole end-to-end scene is pretty stunning to open up your show this way. And as I say, it really made me want to go back out to the cinema to watch it. And
very much so. This for me was planting the flag. So you have to remember as well, for our listeners, and for some people may not know this show was supposed to be the first Marvel MCU TV show on Disney Plus. We did get WandaVision first, but that was due to COVID scheduling and some filming, and that's the way it worked out. But this was supposed to be the curtain being drawn on this new property, this new version of the MCU on not the silver screen, what do we call the TV screen?
The small screen.
Small screen.
Not my head,
streaming.
But,
no, it's a nice big 65 inch. But, this for me this was them planting their flag. This is the quality of the shows you're going to get. Yeah. And I think that's as you said, like, I would have loved to see this in, like, on an IMAX screen or a Max screen, or a huge multi-story projection in high def. The fact that we're getting this on our little screens at home every week for the next 6 weeks is spectacular. Yeah. And this isn't the only action scene we get, and we'll talk a few more about them in a bit. But, like, again, the production is what wowed me. And I'm like, okay, we may not get an 8-minute scene like this every episode, but if we get this 2-3 times throughout the series,
maybe,
like, this is spectacular. This is their hallway scene, if you want to call it that. Now, the hallway scene, for our listeners, back when we first started covering the Marvel Cinematic the Marvel Universe, the Netflix universe, in Daredevil, there was a single take hallway fight scene. And that was them planting their flag, and this is the action, this is the style you get, the visual effects, the choreography, and that's what we got here.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was definitely them planting their flag to say this is the type of show you're getting, without a doubt.
I think this opening excursion and sequence, this action sequence is fantastic. And it's like what you were saying about, Chris, the planting that flag, and, it's a callback to what happens in Winter Soldier. It is absolutely, but I do like that it's underscored with that opening sequence with Sam reliving in his mind or in his head the words of Steve Rogers, and him battling with, I guess, what the shield means as well, that struggle with Captain America's shield. So I really like how that works in immediately to the scene. I know we're talking about that in bullet point 3 a bit more, but I like how it works into that scene. I also, speaking of planting the flag, he's not Captain America. He's Uncle Sam. I had never understood. I loved that with his 2 nephews, when he, comes to meet his sister, that they call him Uncle Sam. I thought that was a pretty nice little joke. And maybe he should just be called Uncle Sam, the new Captain America.
I'm 100% certain that's something from the comic books. I'm 100% certain they made a connection between Sam Wilson and Uncle Sam, definitely. A couple of quick last things about that. Yeah, I know we kind of mentioned Batroc the Leaper. Just really cool that they got the same actor back to do those scenes and do the fight with with Sam Wilson, that a similar fight that you saw from Captain America. You mentioned, Chris, it's very similar to Winter Soldier fight, but great to see the actor coming back for this. So that's another way of showing that there's that blurred line between movie and TV shows, bringing back even minor actors from these movies, because that means you have no idea who to expect could arrive and could appear on screen in future, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And one last point from this mission, there is a mention of a terrorist organization called LAF. That seems to be what Batroc is associated with. Batroc does survive at the end of this, and they never give an explanation for what LAF could stand for. And they say it doesn't matter. In fact, the major who's talking to Sam says, doesn't matter what it stands for. Go out there and do it. That feels to be a little bit like, don't look over here, look over somewhere else. We'll come back to LAF possibly in the future, but just to call it out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, I think it's with Torres, isn't it? Who talks about this other organization possibly being more dangerous than LAF. But yeah, let's see where LAF creeps up to and slit someone's throat, I guess.
It's just may come back in the future. Just need to call out when they give you a 3-letter acronym and don't explain it and say, we're not going to explain that because you don't need to know. You may need to know in the future. That's all.
And I think the other thing here as well, just quickly, before we move on to bullet point 2, is, Sam Wilson, Falcon, doesn't take prisoners, in a sense. There's a number of the guys from the LAF with Batroc, who, end up falling, to their doom in the canyon and the helicopters blowing up and so on. So I think it is literally only Batroc, that probably survives this encounter. Yeah. But for sure, he takes no prisoners.
That's true. I remember the reactions when Captain America did that kind of kicking people off the ship in Winter Soldier. And I remember the reactions of people going, hang on a second, does Captain America kill people now? I think this is very much the same kind of scene for Sam Wilson here. Yeah,
this is basically, he takes no prisoners. If anything, it brings him closer to, he is ex-US Army, and he is very close to another African American who is also a superhero and member of the Avengers, who we'll talk about later. But it brings it closer. Like they take no prisoners, they kill. That is the way.
He's working for the US Air Force. It's not the Avengers. That's the thing here. But even as an Avenger, as I say, it was wing time where he sort of uses his wings to kind of slice and dice. So,
Batroc's not dead. He will be back, yes, on LAF. The Liberation Army Front, Army Liberation Front. Maybe. There we are.
We were thinking because it was near Libya, it was the Libyan Air Force. Yeah. Just simple as that.
Is that all it is?
They'll be back. But speaking of back, another well-known Avenger is also back. The one-armed Avenger. Let's move on to bullet point number 2. Bucky is in therapy. Can I take this quick part of this and just say, oh my God, this was brilliant in all aspects of it. I know most people, yes, we've just seen in that previous scene, we had just seen Sam in all his Falcon glory. We do get a flashback of Winter Soldier in all his Winter Soldier glory. Very much killing Hail Hydra. This is the way. Like everything is like nothing gets in his way. He will take no prisoners, leave no witnesses, and it is all oof.
It was pretty awesome seeing the Winter Soldier back in action, and certainly the return of that eerie theme, his signature theme, was really good. And like it's a nightmare. It's a dream back. He wakes up sleeping on his apartment floor, but right to begin with, I was like going, oh my goodness, what's happened to Winter Soldier? Really? And of course, I mean, it's obvious it's going to be a flashback / dream sequence, or nightmare sequence. Oh, it could be Nightmare is the big fan. Anyway. Right, I'll stop that now. Yeah. Just that, and then coupled to his therapy session, with his therapist. This was just lovely, and it was nicely contrasted with Falcon's sort of big wham bam thing. You get the wham bam thing, with the Winter Soldier taking out his target, but then just how it sort of, a bit later on in the episode slides into the therapy session. I just thought this was really cool. I loved the close-ups that you got of Bucky Barnes and the therapist. Mm-hmm. I love it as he's running through the 3 rules of reconciliation that he's doing, and each one of them he is breaking as he recounts it, and you get the little flashback as he is going after the female Senator Atwood, because he put her in that position when he was working for Hydra, and she's still abusing that position even though as such she's not Hydra. And I loved all these little takes here, going between what he was doing on the ground and his therapy session. I just loved that. I mean, yeah, it was just awesome. Yeah, it was awesome.
I like, once again, setting up Bucky Barnes as this kind of grey character, someone that works in the margins. You know, that's what he did as Winter Soldier. He's not a bad guy now. He was under mind control when he was Winter Soldier, but the 3 rules that he talks through, as the rules of reconciliation, effectively, where he says, rule number 1 is do nothing illegal, and he's tapping the car, which is illegal to do. You can't listen in other people's conversations, no matter how much you might want to. Number 2 is no one gets hurt, and he does hurt someone in the car. He knocks out the person in the car. Number 3, he doesn't break. He says that number 3 is when he's making the reconciliation. His statement that he has to effectively make is that I am no longer the Winter Soldier. I am James Bucky Barnes, and you are part of my effort to make amends, as he calls the police down on Senator Atwood. So what I like about it is he's working in the grey areas. He's not really breaking any rule because he wasn't caught. He's not really killing anybody. So he's only hurting and knocking somebody out. So is that really technically a thing?
He is. I think that's the whole point. He's breaking every rule of his reconciliation, but ultimately no one gets killed. And it's ultimately Atwood will probably go through a legal process. He says he gave the recording to her aide,
which is a lie,
to bring the case. So ultimately he's breaking every rule there apart from probably 3, and he's just doing that. He's so that she knows. I like the fact that it is, and I'm James Bucky Barnes, and you're part of my efforts to make amends, as he's trying to atone, I guess, or make amends for what he did as Winter Soldier, with respect to Atwood here, in this case, because he put her, in power. But I like as well in the therapy session that you get, you know, a little bit more sort of exposition about Bucky as well, that he's probably got less than 10 contacts in his phone. Mm-hmm. He's ignoring, Sam Wilson's, text messages, but also just he there's that moment where she says, what do you want? And he goes, all I want peace. He said, it's been 90 years of going from one fight to another. And the whole idea that, you know, you're free, your mind is cleared, but having this idea of being at peace, being in your own thoughts, that's the worst thing for someone who's had, with PTSD, with that trauma from military service. I thought that was really interesting kind of slant on it, I guess. And I think, he's kind of isolated himself. He's delving into work, without sort of any external input, or without friends, by trying to make amends. He's gone the opposite way, but it's still the same. He's just totally doing his job. He's not got his friendships other than with Yori. But even that is not really, it is a friendship, I guess, but it's also part of his work.
Yeah, exactly.
That he's doing now, I guess.
This for me was the scene that I actually called out to Derek as soon as we actually finished watching. This is why I think I will enjoy this series a lot more than I originally thought I would, in that the cinematography for the therapy scene, the close-up, the angles, choice, just the direction was just on point. It was just so unique. You could have just done a very basic, like, to the camera therapy kind of 2-shot, But no, it was the choice on the angles. We learn a lot, which is we see his list of names. Zemo's on the list.
Right.
We see Russians, at least three Russian names, so we know there's going to be a connection to Hydra and the Russian army, the USSR, so we know there's going to be backstory there. We see him, he is trying to, it's not a big list, it's 2 pages, so it's about 20 people max, and he's scratching them off. So we see that, we see he does still have these nightmares, but there's that humor there. Also, the therapist or the psychologist, whatever degree she is, she's ex-army. She says this herself. Yeah. So I can see that playing in somehow further down the line as well. That maybe she does couple counseling for these.
Okay.
Too.
Interesting.
But I could definitely see the character herself or the actress herself is not a small bit player, so more than likely she is going to have some further part in this. But overall, like, this set up Bucky as who Bucky is.
Absolutely. It's a really important, efficient way of telling the backstory for people who may not have seen the movies or may not have seen them for a long time, understanding who the character is, getting that whole idea that he was in Wakanda, for example, and that was his only point of rest over the previous time. Yeah. Like, remember, he was in World War II. He got frozen, got brainwashed, and then every time he was taken out of being a popsicle, he was sent on a mission to murder someone and then put back on ice again. Over and over and over again, many, many years. He has those memories. We know that from previous movies. We know that he has those memories, and now he's being told, "You're free now. Keep on the right path, and you'll be able to live a good life." But he has all of these memories coming back up. I did love the touch of him waking up from his nightmare on the floor, covered by a blanket. That's referenced by Sam Wilson when Steve first meets him in Winter Soldier. He references the fact that when you come back from war, you can't sleep in a real bed. So that's a nice little touch that you see him being home on his own. So I'm sure this is providing the connection between how Bucky's going to reach out to Sam as well. Sam used to work in the Veterans Association, effectively used to deal with former veterans who are coming back from war. So Sam's a good person to deal with for Bucky. So while they do also have a friendship, Sam does have a relationship with former veterans as well. So I do like those kind of connections. But yeah, really good scene, really economical scene, and really dynamically shot scene to show something that is really just an exposition dump of who Bucky Barnes is at the start of this season. Yeah.
But gentlemen, I think it's about time now that we've kind of been reintroduced to the 2 main characters. Let's move forward into our bullet point number 3, where we talk about Falcon going off his mission. Derek, do you want to take us away with this one?
Yeah, absolutely. Just talking about Falcon at home. Sam Wilson, his real life outside of the Avengers, effectively. Sam was a key member of the Avengers for a number of years. He was brought on board, was a member of the team that stayed in Avengers headquarters, effectively, after he finished up with the Air Force. We're finding out now about his backstory, effectively, about his family, about his sister, his nephews. Sam, another member of the major team of Avengers who disappeared in the blip and came back 5 years later. So he talks about the fact that he's come back to a completely different world than he had before. He's come back to nephews who were babies when he left, and now they're 5 years older, and his sister's struggling now in Louisiana with the family business that they've had for over a century, I think she says, or at least generations in the family. So I like this. I like this connection to Sam, this real backstory and giving him more character than we've had in the past. He's a good foil in the past and a really good friend to Steve Rogers, but we never really knew anything of his past other than he was in the army, he lost a compatriot, and then he's teamed up with Steve, and he's kind of always running behind Steve, I think was always the joke about him, basically. So, from himself, it's not a criticism of Sam. It is that you've got a superpowered Captain America, and Falcon's always been running behind him, effectively. But the impact that's also talked about here, John, you mentioned earlier on about Sam being left the shield by Steve Rogers and being told, "This is yours." Sam saying it feels unfamiliar, doesn't feel like it's mine, but Steve saying it's absolutely supposed to be your shield. And Sam giving it up. This is the first moment in the show we haven't seen him ever use the shield, really. And he's supposed to be the one carrying on the legend of Captain America, but he's giving it straight into the Smithsonian to form part of the Captain America display that we've seen a few times actually in multiple films. This display of the greatest hero from World War II all the way up to present day. So he's giving back this shield to say, isn't for me, this is for Steve and nobody else.
No, I think this was the really poignant moment for me, because we do see Don Cheadle, we see Rhodey, War Machine is there with him, and this is something I always do forget, that the two of them were at some point serving officers of the U.S. military. War Machine, I think, still is. But we do know that Sam has now said he's doing stuff with the military. He was in the Veterans Association back in Winter Soldier when we meet him for the first time. So it's interesting, and they obviously do have this friendship, and we get taken on this tour around the Captain America Hall of Fame. We see the bike from the first Avenger film. We see all of these things. And you get the breakdown, you get the rationale as to why he doesn't feel comfortable having this symbol or being the symbol.
Yeah.
And you see everyone nodding. Everyone is in that crowd. No one is going, no. But now, Rhodey is kind of going, are you sure? And we still think there should be. But you see, he doesn't argue. It's like they all kind of agree to a point.
Yeah, I think with Rhodey, he is not going to force Sam to do it. It's, he asks, why didn't you take up the mantle? And Sam gives him his reasons. Yeah. It's interesting. He says, we coped for 70 years while Steve was on ice. So it's not as such that you need Captain America. Yeah. Things can work without him, I guess, is what he's saying there to some degree.
Like Rhodey's response to that is that times have changed though since those 70 years.
No, exactly.
So while I do feel that Rhodey's not going to push him because it's not his place to, I certainly feel that he's disappointed that Sam's not going to take up the mantle. There's a look that Don Cheadle does while the speech is going on where everybody else is kind of, impressed with Sam Wilson's speech. He's a good orator. He's a good talker. Everybody seemed to be enjoying the speech, and he gives a good joke in there about how statuesque Steve Rogers can be. But you can see Rhodey's face kind of going, he's going to say it, isn't he? He's going to say here he's not going to take up the shield, So there is a disappointment. There is a relationship with them. There is a good friendship between the two of them, definitely, over time. So I'm really glad that we have that scene, but I feel if this is the only moment that we see Rhodey, I'd be surprised if there's not another moment later on in the series where Rhodey comes back and tries to convince Sam to take on the mantle or at least step up, because the choice here was Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers saying to Sam, I choose you to take this forward. And by Sam kind of disagreeing with that choice and walking away from it, it does feel like a little bit of a letdown. I really wanted to see Sam take this on for a few episodes of the show and then maybe decide that he'll step away from it. Kind of try it out, basically, since his best friend, Captain America, told him, I believe in you,
I think it's an interesting choice. I prefer it this way. I mean, rather than it just simply, I guess, part of the 6 episodes will be this struggle, and that shield may come boomeranging its way back, to Sam and to Falcon here. But I like that it is Falcon saying, it's, where he says it belongs to Steve. It feels like it's for someone else. It doesn't feel right in my hands, because he's Falcon and that's who he is. And I think it's interesting, but I guess that's what will be explored with the following episodes. And so I think that's a really nice way that it's not automatic.
No, I agree.
He's got to feel it. Just because Steve says, well, it's you, well, it's not it's not like passing the crown, I guess, or he's basically like Prince Harry. He's wanted to say no thanks. For the time being.
He's not getting it for no reason. He's being chosen by the first Avenger as being the person to take up the mantle. I just would have loved to have seen it. I'm sure we're going to see it later on in the series.
Exactly.
But this point isn't really just about that moment, because I'm sure will come out throughout the rest of the season.
I think that was the thing with Rhodey as well, is that he says as well, he takes it wider than just what's happening with Steve, because he says the world is broken. And I like that in with Falcon going to see his sister then in Louisiana, that you see elements of people still struggling with the blip. We got that with Hayward in WandaVision, but this feels more sort of real. When he goes to his sister, you know, that all of a sudden the banks have started saying, well, you've not got a credit history for the last 5 years. Yes, because I wasn't around. You know, and you see people on the streets because all of a sudden, you know, there's however many million or billion people have returned and things have changed. And I love seeing, this through this family interaction with his sister and with the family business, the fishing business.
But even the fact that himself and Sarah are going to the shelters to feed the homeless people effectively. All of these homeless people seem to have been caused by the blip, by this return of all the missing people. So, it's a much more bleak view, I suppose, of the world than having, Spider-Man Homecoming, where they had the funny gag of the band appearing in the middle of a basketball game as they return. They obviously wouldn't dwell on that in Spider-Man. In WandaVision, we had a little bit of the darkness that's there, a little bit of the challenges that people would have faced. But it does feel much more realistic here, this idea that there's loads of homeless people that have to be helped out. And even though Sarah's struggling herself with her business and Sam's struggling to fit back into the world, they'll still go out there and help the people of the city of Louisiana, which is great.
Exactly. Yeah. I think what's really nice about this is that it puts both Sam and Bucky, it puts their struggles to fit back in after the blip and the loss of Steve Rogers into that wider context, that everyone is dealing with the blip and with the loss of their close friends as well. And it doesn't, I like how it brings that context. It puts them in the wider society dealing with this as well. It just happens to be their friend was Steve Rogers, and, you know, they were involved with the blip and then destroying Thanos, and his armies. And I like that it kind of, it brings that wider element to those two guys, both Bucky and Sam.
Yeah. Yeah.
So WandaVision was 3 weeks after the return. So after the end of Endgame.
Yes.
Essentially 3 weeks later. Let's just say 3.5. Give it a couple of days for people to be a bit kind of, had to give them a moment.
It takes place over a week and started 3 weeks after Endgame. Yeah.
Yeah. So the wording I got here, like, they use several months, and then I heard 8 months somewhere.
Oh.
So how far? We're several to 8 months?
Sam says, I think the only line that I remember from the episode says billions returned a few months ago. So I think this is in between WandaVision and Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home takes place, on their trip effectively after being in school for a while. WandaVision took place within a couple of weeks, and this is a few months later. So I think it's in between the two.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to get that scope, if you will, like, because that will play into things later on. I think because the one thing I'm really happy about, and yes, as you said, the Far From Home band joke was good for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
What I really enjoyed, what I enjoyed in WandaVision and what I'm enjoying so far in this one is the realism of the MCU.
Yeah, exactly.
If you will. It's kind of like, there is a humor. We will, like, if the same thing happened here, you would have the same thing. You would have some people make some jokes about it, but also you would have to look at the humanitarian crisis.
Yeah.
So when you see Sam and his sister giving out homeless meals, giving out meals and about to give out meals after the bank run, it is interesting to see that. It is like to see this is going to play in multiple elements of this. And I think that's what we're going to see. We also hear it from later, in one of our later points as we talk about the Flag Smashers, like an element of that group is the impact of the blip.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how it's going to be faceted into most elements of the story.
Absolutely.
Not just Winter Soldier, not just Falcon, but the the environmental storytelling, if you will, as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, we kind of wonder what the overarching storyline for this phase 4 of Marvel is. And it is the impact of Endgame, the impact of this world, ending for a lot of people, moment in the history of the Marvel universe. And now it's the repercussions of that when everything gets fixed. And I think what is most interesting about the refusal of the bank to give this loan to Sam Wilson, who is known as Falcon, even to the guy who has the decision to make, to give this loan to them, give this small business loan effectively to these two. He still chooses to say no, even though he knows who Sam Wilson, the hero, is. Yeah. He knows he was involved in Endgame. He knows he was an Avenger. But he's still not willing to give him a loan. He knows that the family have banked there for generations and still not willing to give them a leg up. This is a really harsh choice here. And something you wouldn't expect to see outside in a comic book, effectively. In your standard comic book, the hero wins and they get all the plaudits. That's why everybody wants to be a superhero. In this case, it's how do you live? How do you eat? I always wondered that. How do heroes live? They don't have a job. They don't get paid, is what the guy says. And Sam's kind of, trying to tee him up here, going, well, people usually appreciate what we do and kind of help us.
Yeah, he says a lot of goodwill, of which then the bank shows none. Exactly. Which it was kind of interesting. I really like that the bank teller just sort of straight out asks that question, how do you make a living? And I mean, Sam is working with the US Air Force now, so and it's on military contracts. But Bucky, I guess, seems to not be working at the moment.
Yeah, it's only a few months, remember, again. So Bucky would have had to go through his process in order to go on parole and get to the point where he is free, as he's described by the psychiatrist, or by his therapist. So that there is part of that. It is Sam returning home to Louisiana as well. So there is part of this bit that they've only been out of, or returned a few months. So there is stuff that's got to play off, getting a mortgage for a house, you have to have a permanent job for at least a year in order to do that. So when the bank manager says to him, you don't have any bank history for the last 5 years, you're kind of going, that feels exactly like the kind of bank rule that would be put in place to stop giving loans to people. It feels like that's a real world kind of choice.
And then he asks, can I have a selfie? And he's like, are you serious? No, it's, but
he should have told them for that kind of exclusive selfie, a $40,000 investment would be required.
But it's nice that wider context of it. It kind of humanizes a bit, Sam's and Bucky's own struggles in this area. But I guess speaking of Bucky, bullet point 4, yes, he's an old age pensioner. He's an OAP. He's 106 years old, and doesn't look a day over 28. Maybe
a bit older than that.
Something like that. But
I know we're all Sebastian Stans here, but Sebastian Stan himself is definitely over 35, I'd say. I really wanted to talk about this because we didn't really get this from Bucky. This is Captain America, Steve Rogers. This is his story, always the man at a time. Bucky is exactly the same as Cap, but Bucky has had a much harsher existence, really. He has been pulled in and out, sent off on missions to kill people, and then he's now coming back into the real world, told he's free and can do whatever he wants. And his response to that is, what does that mean? I have no idea. He's been in the military since he was just coming into his 20s, effectively. So I did want to have a quick chat about what's going on with Bucky.
Very quick one before we get too deep into the why he is going on a date and all that. In the MCU, we know he has a cybernetic arm, so that is fine. Was he experimented on as well? Was his aging slowed as much with some form of serum as well? Because we do know serums were stolen, as per the Civil War film in this MCU. There was versions of the super soldier serum stolen by the Winter Soldier himself. So I'm just curious, is he... yes, he's 106 and he was put in out of cryogenic for freezing.
And there was a big test program as well by the Russians because it shows them trying to train other Winter Soldiers, that program. I always kind of assumed that he was, not just with the arm, but I mean in terms of just with the strength of his other arm and how he can leap from build. A lot of that is nothing to do with his arm, some of the acrobatics he can do. So, I've kind of always thought he was enhanced in some way.
That's not in any of the MCU story of Bucky.
Yep.
Certainly, comic books have different origins for him. Bucky was that character that disappeared after the World War II comic books and the 60s version of Cap and Bucky. He disappeared, he died, and then 20 or 30 years later, this Winter Soldier character was created with this awesome backstory that he has been on these missions. So it's a very similar story in the comic books as in the movies, but I don't think there's any mention as such that he is a super soldier himself. There is that he is an enhanced, but he certainly was experimented on, was trained to be this Winter Soldier. He certainly got the training that he got.
The reason I ask is that I recently rewatched The Winter Soldier and Civil War, specifically Civil War, and the jump he makes from the building when he's being chased by Cap is enhanced level. And then when you see him throughout the MCU going forward, like in Wakanda, in Endgame and Infinity War, he is just a bit more than peak physical human fitness. And those reasons, sorry, and again, this will lead into later on because he's 106. Like,
yeah, no, exactly. So, and I think, I kind of agree. I think it's not entirely known because I know the Winter Soldier program that we see in Civil War, they're using the serum that has been taken by Bucky as the Winter Soldier from Howard Stark. So, like, they're being enhanced, and I kind of just assumed that there was some enhancement with him because a bit like you're saying, some of the jumps he makes in Winter Soldier, are, well, you would break your ankle if you're not. I would, yeah. My knees would just shatter, I guess, if I jumped off a flyover. Yeah. But,
they did have a character in this episode that is my absolute equivalent, if I was faced with any of these situations, where Bucky is killing the person in his nightmare in his memory, and he can't put his key into the lock that would save him when he's trying to get away from him, and he's just shaking so hard at the idea of a gun being anywhere near him. That's me. That's my equivalent in the Marvel universe.
I guess even if he got through the door, he wasn't going to be particularly safe. But anyway. Yeah, that's why you should always stay for another drink.
You might as well go for another drink. Yeah, but exactly. Speaking about that is part of this element of Bucky fitting into real life. This idea that he's trying to make amends with the people that he's wronged in the past as the Winter Soldier and trying to make amends and tell them that he is now a completely different person. This has led him to befriend Yuri Nakajima, it seems. It would seem that he's gone to him. He is the father of Orjay, who's the person killed in the nightmare that he has, or the memory that he has. So he's going effectively trying to apologize to his father for what he's done. And it seems like either the story of Mr. Nakajima, of how much that affected him, has kept Bucky close and made this friendship with him. It took me a while to realize that could be the connection here. Really obvious afterwards that of course was going to be the connection, but I felt potentially because of his age that this may have been someone that Bucky knew back in the war. He was in a prisoner of war camp for a very long time before being captured and brought over by Hydra. So I thought it might be one of the members of the Howling Commandos potentially, or someone else that Bucky was with. So it did actually take me by surprise when we found out that this was the father of another one of the murder victims of the Winter Soldier. But a really good choice, I thought.
Fantastic.
It was.
I exactly like you. We remember Age of Ultron. We got Stan Lee in the Age of Ultron party scene. We got Stan Lee and the other US Army kind of friends of Captain America being in the party with him. And that's where I took this man to be. I was like, oh, it's one of his friends who he grew up with in the army, and he's now, it's kind of like, so there's a lot of crossover between the MCU and the Ultimates universe in from the comics, and in that the Captain America himself struggles to make friends his own age, and all his friends are these old generational men from when he was in the army and when he was growing up. And that's what it was. So when we saw this, I was like, oh. Yeah. And they play it well. They don't play it like they they hammer it slightly in the shrine. But again, that is more,
that's to make sure you know
yes,
what just happened.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it does feel, because Bucky says to Yuri when he sees him, he says, let's go out to lunch like we always do. So he says to them, they have this regular catch up where they go to Izzy's restaurant. So this is something that they do on a regular basis. So again, he's only back a couple of months after the blip. So, it's telling you that he has an established relationship. This is not the first time he's gone out for lunch with this guy trying to apologize to him for murdering his son, effectively.
I also kind of thought it was his neighbor as well, like because he gets back into the apartment where Yuri's flat is. So I kind of wondered, is this that they're living in the same apartment, that Bucky's picked this because he wants to make amends? And I that's the way I got it. But I actually really loved this relationship between Yuri and Bucky. I thought it felt really just kind and intimate, and going out, like you guys have said, I thought, or maybe it's someone from his past, that he, cause he can only relate to people over 70 or whatever because of his age. And I loved how it then kind of flips back to his nightmare that he has, where he shoots his son, but also with the server in the Japanese restaurant, Leia. I really, I like their interaction as well, where it's kind of, there's a slight disconnect, around the dating apps. He just doesn't understand any of the references and so on. But even just
speaking of which, I don't understand his reference. No, what was he talking about with the? I don't understand this. Loads of pictures of tigers.
I took the Tiger King.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
There's a joke about the Tiger King, because when it was written, it would have been around the same time as Tiger King.
Yeah. So it's all these people on the dating app with tigers to. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I took.
Would you believe, Chris? Tiger King was at the start of the pandemic. That's only March last year.
So it wouldn't be. Oh my God.
2019. So. Well, at least it started in 2019 and finished in 2020. So maybe it's a late edition, but
this is the timeline of when this is supposed to be is 2024.
Oh no, absolutely. I get that. But how would the writers of the TV show know about Tiger
King?
Because there's no reference to COVID either. Whatever about the blip. Well, where's the reference to COVID?
You'll never guess while people disappeared for 5 years, there was also this thing called COVID. Which made them leave their homes. Yeah, that's not been referenced. But honestly, I've been watching way too many action movies, because there's a moment when Bucky goes in for his date and Lee says to him, "Could we slow it down for a second? Let's play a game." And then reaches onto the counter, and I was expecting her to come out with a shotgun. I really was expecting a gun to come out and her to be some kind of opponent for Winter Soldier. She knew who he is, and she's going to attack him. And then it turned into a date with Battlefield.
I was 100%, but it was more. There was an ambulance or a police car goes past the window when he was literally about to go in with the flowers. And it looks like he was just about to stop as he walks in, and you see the siren and the lights go on a car. And I was like, he's going to jump through the window, or someone's going to jump through the window, or something's going to happen. I was like, oh no, okay, he's just going to have a date.
It's just a lovely little date. Yeah.
I have to say, I loved this Battleship game because I immediately got flashes to Homer Simpson and his fat fingers and trying to dial the phone with the little pins and the gloves. It just looks so awkward. And then she asks him, "Why are you wearing the gloves?" And he's like, "Poor circulation." But I thought that was awesome. I loved that kind of the touch of him kind of trying to like, I can't pick up these small pins of the battleship whilst he's trying to play the game. I thought that was really, really cool.
I'm very interested to see if Leia will be, or Leah will be a series regular, or is this the?
I hope so.
Is this Bucky's Sharon Carter? Is this Bucky's girl in time, but he's the man out of time? If you know what I mean, the romance option.
Yeah, it is certainly a moment, I suppose. It is a first date.
Yeah.
But Lee is the server in his regular restaurant that he goes to. So, very important. If you ever ask someone out for a date in the restaurant, be prepared to have another restaurant to go to in the future.
Yes.
If you walk out in the middle of your date with her, like he's having a few beers where they're playing Battleship, gets the memory of what happened with Yuri and walks out, just says, you'll have to give me a moment. So I don't know whether she'll be a regular. I don't know whether he'll go back and apologize to her, later on and try to explain why he left, because, the reason he left is because he wanted to go and talk to, once again, Mr. Nakajima and apologize for murdering his son. Not the greatest of starters of a relationship conversation. So, we may not see Lee again unless she's serving food and he's just doing a quick apology. But you never know.
You never know. It's an interesting rationale. Like, it really
Absolutely.
is.
One last touch in the scene that I have to just call out because it just made me laugh is the Japanese lucky waving cat that's on the counter in front of Lee. Just that moment when Bucky stops the arm from moving, because it's just really irritating him. I don't know why, it just made me laugh. It made me smile.
But then it starts up again. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. No, fantastic.
Not even a superhero can stop the metronomic wave of the lucky Japanese cat.
Absolutely.
No one can stop science, physics.
Exactly.
Except people that fly and like see the electromagnetic spectrum and witchcraft and they can probably stop
That's just science we don't understand yet, Chris.
Yeah.
Let's close out with our bullet point number 5 about possibly some of the villains for the season, let's say, or the villain for the season. Let's talk about the Flag Smashers, in plural, in the TV show. We have this new character that's been brought on board, First Lieutenant, Joaquin Torres, who is the person who's helping out Sam at the beginning of the show. Sam kind of says to him, if you don't mind keeping an eye on these Flag Smashers, who is an organization described by Torres as people who want to bring the world together under, without borders, without flags, effectively. Hence why they're called Flag Smashers, a terrible name, but is from the comic books. While being told by Sam just to monitor the traffic, Torres gets himself into his own little superhero moment, I suppose. Another person without any kind of training, deciding that they're gonna, they think they've got the nod from an Avenger to go off on a mission, and they decide to go off on their own without any kind of backup at all, and film the whole situation. I must say I really like Torres. I like the character. I like the interplay with him and Sam that we see early on in the episode back in Tunisia. And I kind of like the idea of this young kid who thinks he can go off and do missions on his own. I think that's kind of a fun character to see in the show. Yeah,
and he's smart. So we see that he talks about the electronics with Sam, and when Sam's fixing the Falcon suit. So we get exposition that he is intelligent. We get him seeing the kind of using his apps to search for this invisible key, kind of this red handprint in the globe or the earth. So it's a red handprint around with a kind of outline of a globe with some continents. So that's the symbol, and he's looking for it using the camera on his phone. So we see that this is how the Flag Smashers operate. The modus operandi is pulling together large kind of flash mobs, essentially, via the app.
I always think of flash mobs as being a dance group.
Okay. Well,
I don't know why I don't have that.
They did dance. They just ran multiple directions. Interestingly, we see the woman hand out masks, while masked herself. We then see a man jump at least 3 stories or land from 3 stories. So powered, we know that. Yes. We do also know he's powered because he kicks a cop a fair distance.
Yeah, good distance.
Into a pole, and then stomps on Torres' head. After handing off his cash. So we see that so the interesting thing is, we'll just call it out now. Flag Smasher is a character from the comic books. There is elements there, an interplay between Captain America and Sam, and similar to WandaVision and other MCU things. We won't call it out now in case it is directly pulled. As things are introduced, if we know they're not, we can give kind of backstory, origins, things like that, as we get further into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I will very much say that I do like this, whatever this is. This seems kind of, again, grounded in the MCU, grounded in reality, that, there's going to be people after 5 years of, like, chaos and 5 years of, like, we get told they liked the way things were during those 5 years, that there were no borders, they were in control, everyone was helping each other. A world without flags, without boundaries, without countries. That's an interesting manifesto, if we want to call it that.
Well, it's really relevant now when we're, in the real world, when we're going through something like COVID and everybody is just hoping that every single country gets vaccinated as soon as possible so that we can all go back to traveling around the world together. So we're kind of going, forget about your flags, forget about everything. Wouldn't it be great if everybody just was on board together to get this issue solved? So certainly a really appealing and attractive concept for this organization. The fact that they're stealing money from a Swiss bank, not so appealing.
Was it money?
I know, I didn't know that, whether it was a bank or an art gallery or...
It was something. They saw, like, two big...
But it's two big holdalls of, I guess it could just be notes, so it could be a bank.
And the call out from the crowd is, he's got the money. So,
that
was why I said it was just, there was a line, but I think it was in Swiss. So, so I think I saw it on the subtitles that popped up on the screen.
I will just very agree with you. Torres, like him as a character, he's going to be there. Yeah. He'll be, I don't know what he'll be, but
he gave himself the title in the episode, Chris. He said, I'm your man on the ground.
That's
to
it.
Falcon.
Yes.
So, he's the man on the ground.
He'll be that. He'll be the kind of, we don't have S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore. So, and we don't have, well, we probably will have Sword, but he won't, I don't think he's the type of Sword. We'd like CIA, government liaison. Like, remember, I'm hoping he'll be what, Rhodey was for Iron Man, the government liaison.
Potentially.
And I can see that as an interesting thing.
Potentially. I will have to once again call out, as I generally do when you get a line like this in a TV show, remember, Torres paid for Sam's coffee the first time they met and Sam said to him, I'll get you next time we meet. That's a little death knell for Torres usually, or for a character usually. I'll see you next time. Don't worry.
Well,
I'll pay you back then.
I have to say, I thought his. I mean, given the level,
or of course, the other option is that it's episode 6 when they meet back up in person next time, and that's when he buys in the hookah. And
well, he could be Zemo with the S.H.I.E.L.D. sort of face changer technology.
All right.
Who knows?
We're getting into WandaVision theories.
No, I know. But,
he's Mephisto.
he's Mephisto. But I mean, I actually thought, you saying that he was pretty much a goner after the boot from the powered individual to his head. I kind of thought, my glass jaw would have shattered into 1,000 bits at that moment. So I guess he's got a few metal sort of pins and plates in his jaw for him to survive that one.
He does say the boot cracked his orbital part. Yeah. So like he says theoretically he should be concussed. If you're doing that level of damage, but sure.
Yeah. This is the MCU.
Sure.
A couple of band-aids and you're sorted. We do need to talk about the big reveal at the end of the episode. I know this is our last point in Flag Smashers. Clearly going to be more information about Flag Smashers coming out as the episodes go on. But the big reveal at the end of the episode that we have a new Captain America, and it's not Sam Wilson. A real surprise, clearly from his sister's reaction to it. The idea that Sam has given the shield to go into the Smithsonian as part of a memorial to Captain America is clearly what he believed.
Yeah.
But nobody called up Sam and said, are you sure you don't want to take this shield back? If you don't, we're going to pass it on to somebody else. They effectively took the shield and gave it to somebody else that they've chosen. A little shocker, for the end of the episode to stop on this cliffhanger.
It
for Sam,
was. I wasn't expecting that there would be this handover of the shield. Yeah. I mean, when they were putting it into the display case, I thought, okay, that's also weird. So I get it's good that it's come from behind the display case in the Smithsonian, but I didn't think they were going to pass it on to another person. I thought it was somehow the way it was going to make its way from the Smithsonian was to come back into the hands of Sam Wilson. And that obviously could still be the case, but we get this reveal of a new Captain America, and I thought that was really interesting. I certainly was not expecting that. And again, it's all to bring hope post the aftermath of the blip
Yeah.
and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, interesting choice. Certainly doesn't have the same jawline as the former Steve Rogers, I guess.
Yeah, I certainly feel like this is a choice to show that this person that is now in the mask and in the mantle of Captain America doesn't strike the same kind of stoic poses that Steve Rogers did. It's certainly a choice in the casting and the look of the character that standing in front of the screen and giving everybody the wink and the thumbs up is not going to be the same kind of feeling as seeing Steve Rogers. It's important, I suppose.
Yeah.
Gonna call out here that in the closing credits, I guess you call them.
The initial, the title credits, if you will.
Yeah, the kind of closing credits, we do have an image showing the name of this character as John Walker, the new Captain America. It's shown as like an advert for him rather than saying who's playing him in the role. So it is announcing who the character is of John Walker. He is a character from the comic books, as Chris said. Depending on how the story plays out, we will talk about who he is in the comics as the episodes go on. Don't want to spoil anything in case they do take the arc from the comics, because they tend to. Yeah. With Captain America stories, they always tended to actually follow pretty closely to what we've seen in the comic books. So they probably do the same here with Falcon and Winter Soldier. But interested to see John Walker here taking over the mantle.
I just want to call out one quick thing for the interesting thing about the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
He is strapped. Literally, he has his gun on
there you go.
On his leg, similar to when Bucky Barnes took over the mantle in the comic books of Captain America. He was the armed Captain America. He carried a gun, and
very good.
This is very interesting because this is the uniform that it's not a direct Captain America. It's not one of the previous, it's not one of the old ones. It's a version of it that is very close to what at one point Bucky wore before he kind of went to his own full Captain America outfit. Because it was the first thing I noticed, because I was like, oh god, he's got a whatever, a P11 or whatever type of handgun.
Right.
I pretend I know. That was the only one that came to mind. Walter PPK. No.
Always got to point out to our US listeners that none of us know anything about handguns at all. No. So
you can say it's a Desert Eagle. I'm like, cool. Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. It could be some kind of rifle. I have no idea. But that's a really interesting catch. I didn't catch that. But again, there's only one person that has gone successfully through the Super Soldier program, which is Steve Rogers. So his one called Operation Rebirth, where the Super Soldier Serum was administered to Steve Rogers. So interesting that this guy probably doesn't have superpowers. So giving him a gun and the shield is a very different version of Captain America. Excellent. Any notes for the episode, gentlemen?
I gave my big one.
None from you, John?
No notes from me.
Just one that I have to call out as a Nick Fury fan. There's a conversation that goes on between Torres and Sam Wilson, where Torres says that there is a rumor going around that Cap isn't dead. He's on the moon watching over all of us. Personally, I feel that this is a reference to a comic book arc, Original Sin, where we find out that Nick Fury has disappeared off into space, leaving behind an LMD in his place on Earth, a life model decoy on Earth, while Nick Fury is aging up on the moon, watching over us all as the last watcher on the wall in a moon base. So it is a very specific storyline and a great ending, really, to the 60 or 70 years Nick Fury was in comics. So I love that they reference that this could have been the actual fate of Captain America, that he sent off to the moon to live out the rest of his days watching over the world. I thought that was a lovely little touch, but also a comic book reference. And also, the last place we've seen Nick Fury in the MCU is that he's off in space, possibly watching over the world from a Skrull ship. So there is a little connection in there as well. There you go. That was my little reference from the episode.
Good catch. I missed that one.
So, Chris, do you defend Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 1?
Yes, I 100% confirm this, defend this, and everything in between. I'm very interested to see where they go with it. I don't know what I was expecting, but I'm so happy what I got. I got an MCU battle scene in the opening. I got hard-hitting psychological drama in the middle. I got some realism regarding kind of mortgages and dating in post snap in the middle, and then at the end I got this amazing just essentially reveal. Interested to see where they go with 5 episodes. I think it was the pace. The pace was, I was just a bit like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting to end where it ended. I was kind of
Right.
like, oh, I was expecting like almost another 20 minutes. I know that wouldn't have made no sense from a timing perspective.
You're always wanting more. Chris.
Exactly.
That's a good
That's
thing.
the thing. They left me wanting. I'm like, I cannot wait till next Friday. So yeah, I fully defend this, and I'm very interested to see where they go.
Excellent. 47 minutes once again to confirm.
Yes.
WandaVision, we're 22, 23, 28 minutes, this up to 47 minutes. So a full on hour long show equivalent, I suppose. So, we'll probably see the episodes be around that kind of length, for the other 6 episodes. Excellent, Chris. John, do you defend Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 1?
I really do defend episode 1 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I give it 4 smashing flag smashers out of 5 Gromit. I love the feel of it. I like that it's kind of dealing with the world after the blip and people coming back. I like that it's set in the world after the blip and the world dealing with the consequences of that, of the loss of that, of the return of billions from that, and how the world has changed, that there's these organizations. And I like that it puts Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes in that whole kind of storyline, because you get it from their perspective. And I really, the action sequences are awesome. But I loved Bucky Barnes one. I think, it was really cool. I loved the whole therapy side, and I loved, his interaction with, Yori. I thought that was really quite intimate and really, it's kind of hard hitting, really. So this felt really personal, and then I loved how it just expanded out to some of these amazing action sequences and the wider world, dealing with the blip, like with Sam's sister Sarah and the troubles she's going through to save the family business, and just that backstory as well. I think for these 2 characters, both with Sam and his sister, and also Bucky, and in terms of him dealing with what Steve Rogers did, but just getting to see more of it, because they've got effectively 6 hours to tell that tale.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wasn't expecting that end with John Walker, with this new Captain America being sort of, revealed to the world by the US government. So that was kind of a big shocker to me. I didn't think that was going to happen there right at the end. And I'm definitely, up for First Lieutenant Joaquin Torres. I hope he sticks around, as well as Leia as well for Bucky Barnes. I think they both need that kind of sidekick, however it might be. I mean that in just a general sense. So, I really like that. So yeah, I do defend this episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Excellent. I don't think I've ever heard a love interest called a sidekick before. Apart from Bucky and Steve, of course.
Well, yeah, I just didn't want to, well, she's her, sidekick in a love way. And Torres isn't, I guess. Cause even then, if it doesn't work out between Bucky and Leia, maybe she still hangs around, and they're good friends, because he needs a friend. His therapist told him he needs a friend. So should be a nice friend for him. Maybe loving friend. Who knows? But Derek, do you defend this episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Of course I defend this. Yeah, absolutely. As I said up front, this is blurring the lines between the MCU and TV. Like this is like something I would expect to see in the cinema as it opens, and they get the ability to delve into stories that comic books do. Remember, comic books are monthly things that come out for decades on end, sometimes telling the ongoing story of the characters. So, where we've had Steve Rogers being the man out of time in the past, that's kind of dealt with in a couple of minutes of a movie, and a couple of kind of references of, I get that reference being one of his signature lines that we've seen, the kind of joke of this guy out of time. Bucky's a person that's gone through that, and now we're going to see how that impacts his personality and impacts how he has his relationship with the world effectively. Sam Wilson being someone that's been a former military officer and come back from that into the real world. Now someone that's gone away from the blip and come back into the real world. He's embodying another aspect of Steve Rogers that's going to be investigated over the course of this 6 episode series. And to be honest, Anthony Mackie is eminently watchable in everything I've seen him in. He's always great on screen, so I could totally watch a 6-episode show with him. And Sebastian Stan, always great in everything to do with the MCU. I've loved watching him over the course of this role as the Winter Soldier, and I'm really looking forward to seeing both of them. I'm really looking forward to seeing both of them together as well, because the interplay between those two characters when we've seen them on screen together has been great, and getting more of that throughout the series will be good fun. Hopefully we'll see them team up a little bit in episode 2 or 3. I don't want them kept apart for too long on the show, but this was a great opener to set everything up, set the world up, establish where we are, give us some great action scenes, show some international threats that they could be fighting against as the episodes go on, and a big shocking ending with a new Captain America being revealed without Sam even being consulted or being told that this was coming up. I thought that was an interesting way to end the episode on a nice cliffhanger.
Yes, I cannot wait for the bromance and the bro force that will come from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But with our defense out of the way, we move on to a new libation in a new hostelry as we move to Falcon and the Winter Soldier pub quiz. Mm-hmm. First off, a big congratulations to our WandaVision winners, Matthew Randall and Richard and Alfie Blaze. Yeah. Their Funko Pops are in the post. This time we're giving away 3 Funko Pops to one winner of the pub quiz. There will be 6 questions, and we have a Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Baron Zemo Funko Pops for the pub quiz. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is 3 for the price of 1.
I already have those here as well, because all the way throughout WandaVision, they kept moving back the release date of the Funko Pops that we were giving away, and I was getting really concerned towards the end that I wasn't going to get them in time. But the Falcon and Winter Soldier ones have been received there in a box, awaiting sending once the series ends. So yeah, that's good.
But to explain how it works to any people joining us for the first time, each podcast on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we will deliver a question relating to that episode. Normally it's about something happening in the episode more than sort of pop culture reference to comics. So it's more about being sort of zoned in on the episode for that week. Send in your answers to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com each week, or you can put them all together at the end. And then when we do our roundup episode right after our 6th and final discussion of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we will announce the winner. And so first up, question 1 for episode 1 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Including Batroc, how many flying squirrel parachutes jump out of the plane with their hostage, Captain Vassant? Just to repeat that, including Batroc, how many flying squirrel parachutists jump out of the plane with their hostage, Captain Vassant? Yes. It doesn't include the hostage, I hasten to add. Yeah. So it is just those men in the jumpsuits, the flying squirrel jumpsuits, wingsuits.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. And including Batroc. So that's the count for you. These are usually questions where you may have to pause the screen. Have you guys tried to do that with Disney Plus? It's so I find it so difficult with streaming services, with Netflix, with Amazon Prime, with Disney Plus, pausing or rewinding like 10 seconds. Suddenly I'm back 15 minutes trying to move back and forth and back and forth. I find it so difficult, even on a PC. Like
Derek is 106 years old.
Give me back physical media.
I want the newspaper. It's so much easier to rewind.
Now, to confuse him even further, let's move into patreon.com. Yes, we are over on patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, where you can support us for just a single $1, for €1, for whatever you got in your pocket. If you got lint, we'll take it. Why? Because we need to keep the lights on, the podcast servers going, and our producer in caffeine. It will mean so much to us. We want to say a big shout out to our latest Patreons, Mike Scannell and Siren School. So thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to us. We do this on the weekends. We do this for the fun of it. We love to inform, entertain, and just watch these shows and have these discussions with you. But there is a cost, so anything you can give is always much appreciated. If you cannot support over on patreon.com, please feel free to support in the myriad of other ways, such as going over to any of the podcast feeds and leaving a review. Any 5-star reviews are always welcome. We always appreciate them. Or can't do that? No problem. Why not share the podcast? Share it with your granny. Share it with your uncle. Share it with your sister. Share it with that screaming kid down the road. Do you know why? Because that will shut them up.
Yes, you can even share it with your girlfriend, the sushi waitress.
There you go. So as always, look, we really do appreciate it. We do not plug it a lot, but we plug it every episode, but we do not talk about it that much. We just wanted to say a huge thank you. You guys mean a lot to us, and we hope that we mean a lot to you.
Absolutely. And thanks very much to everybody else that supports us over on Patreon. It is much appreciated. And thanks to Mike and to Siren School for joining us over the last month. If you want to send in any thoughts about Falcon the Winter Soldier episode 1 or any of the future episodes for the show, just email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. You can pop over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com and leave us a voicemail there. Or, as John mentioned earlier on, but you may have forgotten, go over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, and you can pop onto our spoiler post for each individual episode to leave your thoughts. Thanks so much for joining us for the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll be back with episode 2, which comes out on Disney Plus from Friday, 26th of March. We're recording our episode on Saturday the 27th, so get your thoughts in as soon as you can after watching the episode. Thanks for joining us.
Ta-ra for now.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow defenders, for joining us for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier discussion. It's been great having you back on board again after such a short time this time. Remember, as always, keep watching, keep listening, and keep soaring in those clouds. Bye.
Aww. Bye.
I hear a lot of people saying the blues, but I'm gonna tell you what the blues is.